I don't want to prejudge the two members of the committee, the co-chair, but yes, we will, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, we will set up an independent, I guess they call it the equity office. I don't have the language in the report. We will fund it, and the responsibilities will be to do the things that you're suggesting in your question, that individuals, should they feel that they are the subject of inappropriate behavior in the state capitol, visitors, staff, state senators, members of the media can go to freely, and that they can make their statements, and that it will be aggressively and properly followed. And just exactly how we're going to make it independent has been defined. It's all there in the Law Commission report. I definitely think that that is going to take place. It'll be a remarkable new part of how we, plus every year we will audit the state legislature, we will audit the Capitol workplace audit to see how we're doing and not. And how that human audit is done, I don't know. So I think all that is going to be something that will come out of the Capitol Workplace Culture Committee. I don't want to prejudge it because they've got to hold their public hearings. Senator Burdick is co-chair. Senator Burdick is going to be on it. But that will be a huge change that's going to take place.
And I met with, just today, with my co-chair from the House side, Representative Williamson, and one of the things we really want to focus on in changing our rules is to expand the scope of harassment protection, to include not just legislators and staff, but to include the lobby, certainly include interns, and make sure that everyone who comes into the Capitol not only feels safe, but if they end up not being safe, to feel safe in reporting. That's going to be a big challenge. For whatever reason, people are very reluctant to come forward, and that has to change. That's a cultural change. That part of it is a barrier right now, where people need to be safe, to feel safe, to come forward when situations are happening that make them feel uncomfortable. We will be focusing a great deal of attention on that.
And the one thing I don't know how we're going to do it, in reading parts of the report again this morning, is they put in there that this new equity office has to have a confidentiality process that an individual could feel free to come forward and be made, what they have to say will be kept in confidence. That, because of what's happened with the struggle with Boley and the legislature, that is going to be a huge challenge, and I'm really anxious to see how we're going to be able to do that. But I'm just giving you an example of where that I don't know how we're going to do, but the Law Commission put in there, you have to have a confidentiality part of your approach so that a person can feel they're free to come forward and what they say will be held in confidence.
I have a question on that, because one of the things that Boley brought up repeatedly was sort of this code of silence, or the women that were bringing up concerns were told by Lori and Dexter that they should not talk about this. So it's one thing if it's voluntary, but they were getting the message that it shouldn't talk about it. Was that appropriate, is my question.
Those were among many, many unrebutted charges in the Boley report. There are so many instances in that report, including one related to me, where charges were made. I was never contacted to respond. And these were just charges that were laid out there. There was also a very professional and damning, frankly, report done in connection with the whole cruise situation by D. Rubinoff. And I really encourage people to read that report, because it was thoroughly vetted out. You know, if something came up, follow-up interviews were done in that report, and it was very clear in that report what those interviews were. So the thrust of the Boley report is correct. We've got problems in the Capitol that we need to deal with. The process they went through was lacking in many regards.
Well, wait a minute. I thought Monday.
About Dee's report when it came out in detail But the specific question was, do you guys, I mean, are you saying that these women are incorrect when they say that they were told not to discuss this?
I don't know whether they were correct or not. What I do know is that there were a lot of charges made in that report that were very inflammatory, that follow-up was never done. That's all I know. My inclination is always to believe the victim, but you have to do the proper process.
Well, wait a minute, now let me be careful, I want to be accurate. I thought Monday, Herman, Ginny, we talked about the complaining parties, whether they could be told they can talk or not versus that whole.
But that's a different issue.
Well, but, okay.
That's a different issue.
We are struggling with this issue about what, regardless of what you think they were told or who did or not, that is an issue we have to get worked through, do we not, as to.
Oh, I see what you're saying. We passed a rule in both the House and Senate. There was a provision in our Rule 27, which is our harassment rule, that said people have to keep their complaints in confidence. They have to keep everything in confidence when either an informal complaint is made or a formal complaint. That is unenforceable. And so we went as far as we could with a consensus to make sure that at least the complainant in an informal complaint and anyone in a formal complaint can talk about it, because we can't suppress people from talking. So I think that's maybe.
But we
why
have some
we're
more
getting-
work to do there too. So
We do.
again, I don't want to confuse.
That's not done. The joint committee will be taking up that issue.
Senator Burdick, are you saying that the bully investigation was conducted with a lesser standard of care than the typical bully investigation?
Yes.
You agree with the conclusions that more needs to be done to fix the culture in the Capitol, but other than that, do you consider it in some way it was a hit job?
My whole problem is inflammatory speech, so I'm not going to engage in that.
I wanted to ask, on the subject of rules, the House passed something also that would not